The Sullivan Group's quarterly business meeting was always an exercise in family politics, but this time they'd outdone themselves. I stood in the doorway of the main conference room, watching my brother Michael arrange nameplates for the important attendees. "Oh, Sarah," he said, barely glancing up. "The storage room's through there. We need all the space in here for actual clients." I looked down at my simple black pantsuit, expertly tailored Armani, though they'd never notice, and thought about the irony of the situation. About the documents in my briefcase that could change everything. "Actual clients?" I asked mildly. "You know, people who matter," my sister Jennifer chimed in, adjusting her flashy designer suit. "Not small-time consultants like you." Small-time consultant. That's what they called me now. The family disappointment who'd walked away from Sullivan Group 5 years ago to find herself. They had no idea that I'd found a lot more than myself. I'd built an empire. "The storage room's actually gotten quite crowded," Michael smirked. "But I'm sure you can find a spot between the old filing cabinets and the broken printer. Very appropriate for your position." I thought about the email I'd received that morning, confirming that Sterling Enterprises had just acquired another 5% of Sullivan Group's shares. My company now owned 47% of their family business, all purchased through various shell corporations over the past 3 years. Not that they knew Sterling Enterprises was mine. "The meeting starts in 20 minutes, Jennifer announced importantly. "We have some major clients coming in. Very exclusive deals in the works." She smoothed her skirt, preening. "I'm handling the Maxwell contract personally." I bit back a smile, knowing that the Maxwell contract was actually with Sterling Enterprises. With me. They just didn't know it yet. "How's the independent consulting going?" Michael asked with fake concern. "Still working out of that little office downtown?" That little office was actually a test site for one of my smaller companies. My real office occupied the top 3 floors of a downtown skyscraper, with a view that made Sullivan Group's headquarters look like it was in the suburbs. "I manage," I said quietly, picking up my briefcase. "The storage room, you said?" "Through there," Jennifer pointed dismissively. "Try not to make too much noise during the meeting. We have actual business to discuss." I walked into the storage room, closing the door behind me. The space was dusty, cramped, and poorly lit, a perfect metaphor for how my family saw me. The Sullivan Group's unwanted daughter, relegated to the background. 5 years ago I'd been exactly where Jennifer stood now, the rising star of Sullivan Group, next in line for leadership. Then I discovered some disturbing irregularities in the company's practices. Environmental violations swept under the rug. Safety regulations ignored for profit. Workers' rights trampled without a second thought. When I brought my concerns to my father, he'd laughed. "That's business, sweetheart. If you can't handle it, maybe you should find something smaller to occupy yourself." So I did. I walked away using my trust fund to start Sterling Enterprises. The name was a private joke. Sterling had been my mother's maiden name. She died when I was young, leaving me with a fortune she'd built independently of the Sullivan Empire. Money my father had never been able to touch. I built Sterling differently from the ground up. Ethical practices, sustainable policies, fair wages and good working conditions. While Sullivan Group chased quick profits, Sterling invested in long-term stability and innovation. Now, 5 years later, Sterling Enterprises was one of the largest holding companies in the country. We owned stakes in everything from tech startups to manufacturing plants, all operated with the same ethical standards. Our latest target? Sullivan Group itself. The company was vulnerable, though my family was too arrogant to see it. Years of cutting corners had left them exposed. Their stock price was falling. Major clients were jumping ship. They needed a massive capital injection to survive, which was exactly why they'd called this meeting. I settled into a dusty chair between filing cabinets, pulling out my laptop. Through the thin walls, I could hear the conference room filling up. Jennifer's voice carried clearly as she greeted people. "Mr. Maxwell. So wonderful to see you. We're very excited about our upcoming partnership." I smiled, knowing that Mr. Maxwell was actually here to meet with Sterling Sugiyumi. The partnership, Jennifer thought she was negotiating, was actually part of my larger plan to take control of Sullivan Group. My phone buzzed quietly, a message from my assistant. "All preparations in place. Legal team standing by." Other board members have confirmed their support. Another buzz. Mr. Maxwell asks if you want him to maintain the charade through the whole meeting, or reveal your identity early? I considered for a moment, then typed back, let's see how it plays out. But make sure he knows not to sign anything Jennifer puts in front of him. The storage room door opened suddenly, and my father's latest trophy wife stuck her head in. Sarah, your father wants you to keep the door closed during the meeting. We can hear you typing. I nodded politely, thinking about how she'd react when she discovered her prenup had been purchased by Sterling last month, along with the private investigator's photos of her tennis lessons with the pool boy. Through the wall, I heard my father start the meeting. Charles Sullivan, CEO of Sullivan Group and patriarch of the family, still commanded attention when he spoke. But there was an edge of desperation in his voice today that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. As you know, Sullivan Group is exploring new partnership opportunities. Partnership opportunities. Such a nice way of saying they were desperately seeking investors to save them from bankruptcy. The company needed at least $200 million in new capital by the end of the quarter. Coincidentally, that was exactly how much Sterling Enterprises was prepared to offer, with conditions. My laptop showed a notification. Sullivan Group stock had dropped another 2% since market opening. The timing couldn't have been better. I heard Jennifer start her presentation, her voice full of false confidence as she outlined the Maxwell partnership proposal. The same proposal I'd already rejected twice through my Sterling executives. And with Mr. Maxwell's investment, she concluded triumphantly, Sullivan Group will be positioned to expand into new markets. Actually, Mr. Maxwell's familiar voice interrupted, I'm not here to discuss that proposal. I'm here to meet with the CEO of Sterling Enterprises. The room fell silent. I could practically hear Jennifer's perfectly painted smile crack. I don't understand, she stammered. The meeting invitation was arranged through Sterling, Mr. Maxwell confirmed. They now own a significant portion of Sullivan Group's shares, as well as controlling interest in several of your major clients, including my company. That's impossible, my father's voice boomed. We would know if someone was buying up our stock. I stood up, straightening my jacket. It was time. Would you? I asked, opening the storage room door. Like you knew your environmental compliance reports were falsified? Or that your Asian manufacturing plants violate international labor laws? Or that your biggest clients have been looking for an ethical alternative? Every head in the conference room turned toward me. Jennifer's face went pale. Michael dropped his Mont Blanc pen. My father's expression froze somewhere between confusion and dawning horror. Sarah, he managed. What are you talking about? I smiled, stepping fully into the room. Perhaps we should start this meeting over. After all, it's rude to keep your biggest shareholder in the storage room. The silence in the conference room was absolute. I walked to the head of the table, setting my briefcase down with a quiet but deliberate click. Sterling Enterprises, I began, enjoying how my father's face paled at each word, currently owns 47% of Sullivan Group's shares. We also control interests in your major suppliers, hold the majority of your outstanding debt, and as of this morning have partnership agreements with 80% of your client base. That's not possible, Jennifer stammered. Sterling is run by me, I finished simply. Has been since I left Sullivan Group 5 years ago. Though I'm not surprised you didn't know, you've all been too busy cutting corners and chasing quarterly profits to notice who was really buying up your company. Michael found his voice first. But you're just a consultant, working out of some tiny office. That tiny office you love to mock? I smiled. It's one of our research and development sites. My actual office is in the Sterling Tower downtown. You know, the building that makes this one look small. I opened my laptop, connecting it to the room's display screen. Charts and graphs appeared, showing Sullivan Group's declining performance over the past 5 years. Let's review, shall we? Your stock price has dropped 60% since I left. Major clients are fleeing, citing ethical concerns. You're facing 3 separate EPA investigations, and the Department of Labor is very interested in your overseas operations. Now see here, my father started, his face reddening. You can't just come in here and... I can and I am, I cut him off. Because unlike you, I built something sustainable. Something ethical. While you were teaching Jennifer and Michael to hide violations and bribe inspectors, I was creating a company that actually follows the laws. Mr. Maxwell nodded approvingly. That's why we moved our business to Sterling. Their ethical standards are impeccable. Ethics don't pay bills, Jennifer snapped, but her voice wavered. Actually, I clicked to the next slide. They do. Sterling's profit margins are 30% higher than industry standard. Turns out treating workers fairly and respecting environmental regulations is good for business. Who you? I distributed folders to everyone at the table. Inside you'll find our proposal for Sullivan Group's future. We're prepared to inject $200 million in new capital, the exact amount you need to avoid bankruptcy. And what do you want in return? My father asked, his business instincts finally kicking in. Complete control, I said simply. The Sullivan family will retain 20% ownership, but operational decisions will be made by Sterling's board. Which means things are going to change. Michael laughed nervously. You can't be serious. Dad, tell her she can't. Your sister owns nearly half the company, Mr. Maxwell interrupted. And she has proxy agreements with other major shareholders. She absolutely can. I clicked to another slide showing Sullivan Group's ethical violations over the past decade. The choice is simple. Accept our offer and let us clean up your mess, or watch your company collapse under the weight of its own corruption. You destroy your own family's legacy? Jennifer asked incredulously. This isn't about destroying anything, I corrected her. It's about building something better. Sterling's track record speaks for itself. We turn failing companies into sustainable enterprises. We just happen to be doing it to our own family business this time. My father stood up slowly, his face a mixture of anger and something else. Perhaps respect. You planned this. All of it. The quiet exit, the strategic acquisitions. I learned from the best, Dad, I said quietly. You taught me everything about business. Everything except ethics. For that, I had to look to Mom. He flinched at the mention of my mother. She'd been the moral compass of the family, always pushing for better practices, safer conditions, real corporate responsibility. After her death, those values had died too, at least for the rest of them. The papers need to be signed today, I continued, pulling out the final documents. Your creditors won't wait any longer. Neither will the EPA. Jennifer grabbed my father's arm. Daddy, you can't let her do this. We can find other investors. Can you? I raised an eyebrow. Check your phones. The press release about Sterling's ownership stake just went public. Your stock is already dropping. By market close, you'll be lucky if anyone wants to buy your office furniture. The room erupted in chaos. Board members frantically checked their phones. Michael slumped in his chair, all arrogance gone. Jennifer looked like she might faint. My father picked up the contract, reading it carefully. His hands shook slightly. You'll keep the Sullivan name? He asked finally. The company name, yes. But not the practices that have destroyed it. I met his eyes steadily. It's time for Sullivan Group to mean something more than profit at any cost. He nodded slowly, then reached for a pen. Wait. Jennifer shrieked. What about us? Our positions are secure, I said calmly. If you're willing to learn new ways of doing business. Sterling has excellent training programs for ethical corporate governance. Or you can leave with your 20% ownership and find something else to do. You'd really fire your own siblings? Michael asked. I'd really expect my siblings to earn their positions, I corrected. Like every other Sterling employee does. The contracts were signed within the hour. As people filed out of the conference room, Mr. Maxwell stopped to shake my hand. Brilliantly done, he said quietly. Your mother would be proud. I watched my family huddle together in the corner, their world completely upended. Part of me felt for them. Change is never easy. But a larger part knew this was necessary not just for business but for justice. The next few months were transformative. Sullivan Group's unethical practices were systematically dismantled. New policies were implemented. Workers received better wages and safer conditions. Environmental standards were raised above legal requirements. Jennifer actually surprised everyone by embracing the changes. She threw herself into learning about sustainable business practices, eventually earning a legitimate position in Sterling's corporate responsibility division. Michael struggled more but finally found his place in community relations, where his charm could be used to build bridges instead of hide violations. My father stepped down as CEO but stayed on as an advisor, gradually accepting that his daughter had built something better than he ever had. 1 year after the takeover, I stood in my office at Sterling Tower looking out over the city. The Sullivan Group building was visible in the distance, its logo now paired with Sterling's ethical business certification. My assistant knocked gently. "Your father's here for the quarterly review." I nodded, thinking about how much had changed. The last time I'd seen my father, he'd actually smiled when showing me the company's new sustainability report. "Send him in," I said. "And Jennifer too if she's available. I want her input on the new worker safety initiatives." As they entered my office, my real office, not a storage room, I thought about legacy. About how sometimes saving something means completely transforming it. About how the best revenge isn't in destroying what others built, but in building something better yourself. "Ready to review the numbers?" my father asked, actually looking eager to share the improved performance metrics. I smiled, gesturing to the conference table, where everyone had a seat. "Always," I replied. "After all, that's what happens when you treat everyone like an important client." The Sullivan Group continues to thrive under Sterling's leadership, proof that ethics and profits aren't mutually exclusive. And if anyone ever suggests relegating someone to the storage room during meetings, they're quickly reminded of the day the consultant turned out to own the company. Sometimes the best view of success comes from starting in the storage room. You just have to be patient enough to wait for the right moment to open the door. The Anderson family Christmas gathering was in full swing, crystal glasses tinkling as relatives exchanged knowing looks about my struggling career. Mom sat perched on her favorite armchair, orchestrating the gift exchange with her usual precision. "And this one's for Emma," she announced, passing me a small envelope with a pitying smile. "Something practical this year." I accepted it, already knowing what lay inside. Through the window behind her, I could see the helipad lights blinking on my building across the city skyline. "A bus pass," Aunt Margaret exclaimed as I opened it. "How thoughtful, Helen. Especially after Emma's career changes." The changes they referred to were my decision to leave my corporate job 6 months ago. What they didn't know was why. "The 42 route goes right past that little office of yours," Mom added helpfully. "No more parking worries." My phone buzzed discreetly. Tower clearance confirmed for 7 p.m. departure. Crew standing by. Speaking of the office, my cousin Blake smirked from behind his investment banker business card. "How's the consulting going?" I checked my watch. 6:30 p.m. The helicopter would be ready soon. "It's going well," I replied mildly, watching another corporate skyscraper being added to my portfolio through a series of silent phone notifications. "Well enough to afford a car?" Uncle Robert chuckled. "That bus pass will come in handy." Mom touched my arm sympathetically. "Darling, about that offer to help with a down payment on a sensible Honda." My phone lit up again. "Ms. Anderson, acquisition of Pacific Towers complete. Current portfolio value, $2.8 billion. "I'm managing," I said, just as the distinctive whir of helicopter blades became audible through the penthouse windows. "Is that the hospital helicopter?" Aunt Margaret peered outside at the approaching aircraft. "Oh, those poor emergency patients on Christmas." "Actually," I stood up, gathering my things, "that's my ride." The family fell silent as the sleek black helicopter descended onto the adjacent building's helipad, my company logo clearly visible on its side. But the bus pass," Mom stammered. "Will make an excellent bookmark," I finished, retrieving my coat. "Though I haven't taken public transit since acquiring the Transportation Authority last month." "Acquiring they?" Blake's smug expression faltered. "What exactly do you consult on?" The pilot's voice crackled through my phone. "Ms. Anderson, your helicopter is ready." "Real estate mainly," I replied, watching their faces as realization dawned. "That little office you mentioned? It takes up the top 10 floors of the building your firm just tried to lease, Blake. By the way, about that lease application." Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "Emma, what are you saying? That your practical gift, while touching, might be slightly out of sync with my current transportation needs. But your little consulting business." Aunt Margaret sputtered, watching the helicopter settle onto the helipad. Last Christmas you were just starting. Last Christmas, I corrected. I was finalizing the acquisition of my first office tower. The one Uncle Robert called an ambitious pipe dream for someone so junior. My phone displayed another update. Downtown portfolio value, $3.2 billion after Pacific Tower's integration. Those meetings you said you couldn't afford to drive to, Mom began slowly, were with international investment groups. I finished. Turns out helicopter travel is more efficient than a sensible Honda. Blake was frantically searching on his phone, his face growing paler by the second. Anderson Global Properties. That's you? But they're the biggest real estate investment firm in 3 states? I smiled. Yes. Though after today's acquisition make that 5 states. The pilot's voice crackled again. Ms. Anderson, weather window optimal for next 30 minutes. Uncle Robert, who'd lectured me about fiscal responsibility last Christmas, was staring at his whiskey glass like it had betrayed him. The Mitchell Tower acquisition last month was one of my smaller deals, I nodded. Only $400 million. Though the bus pass would have covered my trip to the closing. Mom stood up, her carefully maintained composure cracking. Darling, if we'd known. Known what? I asked, checking another notification about my latest property closing. That the daughter you were so worried about actually owns this building? And most of the skyline you can see from these windows. The family's eyes collectively turned to the wall of windows, taking in the glittering towers of downtown. My towers now. Your office, Blake said weakly. The one I called a modest startup space. Takes up half of Anderson Tower, I confirmed. The building your firm's been trying to get into for months. About that lease application denied, by the way. We have standards. Mom was still clutching the bus pass, her expression lost between pride and embarrassment. The downtown development project in the news is mine, I said, walking to the window. Along with most of the buildings you can see from here. That little consulting business you've been so concerned about? It now controls more real estate than the company Blake works for. My phone lit up with another alert. Year-end portfolio valuation complete. $5.4 billion across 5 states. The helicopter, Aunt Margaret whispered, is one of 12 in my fleet, I replied. For when I need to visit my properties in other cities. Slightly more convenient than the 42 bus route. The pilot's voice came through again. Ms. Anderson, Dubai investors awaiting your video call in 45 minutes. I gathered my coat, watching their faces as the full scope of my success finally registered. The daughter they'd tried to help with bus passes and Honda down payments was now one of the largest property owners on the West Coast. Merry Christmas, I said, heading for the door. Oh, and Mom? About that sensible Honda. She looked up, still dazed. I bought the dealership last week. Along with the rest of the automotive group. But thanks for thinking of my commute. The sound of helicopter blades filled the room as I left them sitting there, surrounded by the evidence of their misplaced concern, in a building I owned. The next morning my executive suite at Anderson Tower was buzzing with activity. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see my helicopter fleet gleaming on the private helipad, a far cry from the bus route Mom had so carefully researched. The family's been quite active on Google this morning, my assistant reported, hiding a smile. Lots of searches for Anderson Global Properties and Emma Anderson net worth. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I'd left the Christmas gathering. Texts from relatives who suddenly remembered my incredible potential. Blake, about that lease application. Perhaps we could discuss over lunch? Aunt Margaret, darling, did I mention my son is getting into real estate? Uncle Robert, that whiskey we discussed, I have a rare collection to show you. The Dubai investors were impressed, my CFO announced, entering with more acquisition papers. They're ready to move forward with the $800 million development project. My phone lit up with a news alert. Anderson Global Properties expands again. Emma Anderson's real estate empire continues explosive growth. Ms. Anderson, my assistant interrupted, your mother is in the lobby. She's brought the bus pass. I smiled, remembering her face when the helicopter landed. Send her up. And pull up the downtown property map on the screens. Mom entered my office like she was stepping into another world. Her eyes darted from the sophisticated control center displaying my real estate holdings to the helicopter landing pad where 3 aircraft bore my company logo. "Emma," she started, clutching her designer purse, "about last night. The bus pass," I asked mildly, signing off on another billion-dollar acquisition. I brought it back." She held out the envelope, hands shaking slightly. "Given your transportation situation." The screens behind me lit up with real-time updates. Anderson Global Properties market cap exceeds $10 billion. The Honda dealership called, my assistant announced. They need approval for the new showroom design. Mom's face flushed as she realized I hadn't been joking about owning the automotive group. "The thing is, Emma," she continued, sinking into one of my custom leather chairs, "we were just worried about you. When you left your corporate job to start my own company," I finished. "The one that now owns most of downtown, including this building and the country club where you held my career intervention last spring." Her eyes widened. "The country club was an impulse purchase," I admitted. "Though not as impulsive as buying the helicopter fleet that replaced my need for your bus pass." My phone buzzed with another update. "Middle East expansion confirmed. Anderson Global Properties enters international market. Your father," Mom ventured, "wants to know if you'll still come to Sunday dinners." "I might," I replied, checking my pilot's schedule. Though private aviation tends to run on its own timetable. The office screen switched to a live feed of the city's latest development project, my latest development project. Mom watched transfixed as billions in real estate holdings scrolled past. "The Mitchell Tower," she whispered, recognizing the building where she'd once suggested I apply for an entry-level position. "Just closed last week," I confirmed, "along with the entire block. We're demolishing it for something more ambitious." My phone lit up with another text from Blake. "That lease rejection, surely we can work something out? Family discount. Your cousin seems concerned about his office space," I noted, showing Mom the message. "Blake's firm," she began, "is being evicted next month," I finished. "That building needs renovating and their lease application didn't meet our standards. Like Blake said last Christmas, business is business." My assistant appeared with more updates. "The helicopter fleet expansion is confirmed. 3 more aircraft arriving next week." Mom stared at the existing fleet through the windows. "When you said you were busy with meetings." "I was flying between properties," I nodded. That sensible Honda wouldn't have quite managed the commute to our Seattle acquisitions. The screens displayed another breaking news alert. Anderson Global Properties announces $5 billion downtown redevelopment project. "The family Christmas party next year," Mom said quietly. "We usually host it in my building," I completed her thought. "The one you're sitting in now. Interesting how that worked out." My phone buzzed with a message from Uncle Robert. "About that whiskey discussion, I have some excellent investment opportunities to share." "The family seems suddenly interested in business meetings," I observed, declining his calendar invite. "We just..." Mom clutched her purse tighter. "We didn't understand what you were building." "No," I agreed, watching another of my helicopters take off for a property inspection. "You were too busy planning my bus route." My assistant entered again. "Your 10 a.m. is here. The mayor wants to discuss the downtown regeneration project." Mom stood, finally grasping the scope of her daughter's little consulting business. The bus pass lay forgotten on my desk, a relic of their misplaced concern. "One more thing," I added as she turned to leave. "About Sunday dinners." She looked back hopefully. "The restaurant you host them at? I bought it last week, along with the rest of the restaurant group. Menu changes pending." As the mayor was shown in, Mom exited past the helicopter pad, past the fleet that had replaced her practical gift, past the empire they'd never seen coming. 1 month after the Christmas bus pass incident, I sat in my private boardroom reviewing the latest acquisition reports. The city skyline, increasingly dominated by Anderson Global Properties, glittered through the panoramic windows. "Your family's country club membership renewal is up for review," my assistant mentioned. "Given the recent ownership change." I smiled, remembering Mom's face when she'd learned I'd acquired her social sanctuary. "Let them sweat it out for another week." My phone lit up with another desperate text from Blake. The eviction notice is final next week. Please, we can discuss terms. The screens around me displayed real-time updates of my portfolio. Anderson Global Properties surpasses $15 billion in assets. The Sunday dinner restaurant called, my assistant continued. Your mother's trying to maintain her usual permanent reservation. Tell them all reservations are under review, I replied, signing off on another skyscraper acquisition, including the family table she's held for 20 years. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Emma Anderson named Real Estate Developer of the Year. From startup to Empire I in 18 months. The helicopter pad outside my window was busy today, 3 of my aircraft preparing for property inspections across the coast. A far cry from the bus route Mom had so carefully plotted. Ms. Anderson, my CFO entered with more papers. The Dubai development is exceeding projections. They're requesting an additional $2 billion investment. I was reviewing the proposal when Mom appeared at my door, looking less certain than her usual country club confidence. Emma, darling, she started, about the club membership. The one you used to lecture me about not being able to afford? I asked, watching another of my helicopters take off. And the restaurant, she continued. 20 years we've had that table. Things change, I noted, signing the Dubai expansion papers. Like transportation preferences. My phone displayed another message, Aunt Margaret this time. Sweetie, remember when I mentioned my son's real estate interests? He'd love to in turn. The family seems to be developing a sudden passion for property development, I observed, declining yet another lunch invitation from Blake. Mom sank into a visitor chair, watching the empire she'd never noticed her daughter building. We wanted to help. With a bus pass, I finished. While I was buying the buildings you could see from the bus windows. The screens switched to live footage of the Mitchell Tower demolition, the building where they'd once hoped I'd accept a junior position. Now it was making way for my latest development project. Your father, Mom ventured, would like to discuss some investment opportunities. Like the ones he dismissed as unrealistic last Christmas? I checked another helicopter departure time. I'm afraid my schedule is rather full. Aviation commitments, you understand. My assistant appeared with more updates. The new Anderson Tower West is ready for tenant applications. Your cousin Blake's firm has submitted another proposal. Declined, I said firmly. Though I hear the bus route to their new location is quite efficient. Mom winced at the reference to their well-intentioned gift. Through the windows behind her, crews were removing the old building signage, replacing it with the Anderson Global Properties logo. The thing is, Emma, she said quietly, we never saw the helicopters? I suggested. The buildings? The empire? No, you were too busy planning my commute. My phone lit up with another headline. Anderson Global Properties announces $10 billion international expansion. About Christmas next year, Mom started. Will be held in my new downtown development, I confirmed. The one replacing the building where Blake used to work. Helicopter access only. As if on cue, another of my aircraft lifted off, carrying executives to survey my latest acquisition. Mom watched it go, the bus pass story now a family legend of misjudgment. The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the Anderson family's 200-year-old dining table, imported from France during their better days, as Mother loved to remind everyone. Tonight marked our traditional monthly family dinner, a ritual as rigid as the starched collar of my father's Brioni shirt. The table, stretching beneath the chandelier's glow, displayed the usual arsenal of wealth. Wedgwood china, Christoffel silverware and crystal glasses that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I adjusted my position in the antique chair, its wooden frame creaking slightly. The sound drew a sharp glance from my mother, Elizabeth Anderson, who sat perfectly poised in her new Chanel suit, the price tag of which she'd accidentally left visible on the sleeve during last week's charity gala. Amanda, darling, do try to sit still, Mother sighed, delicately cutting into her Wagyu beef. 32 years old and you still fidget like a child. The familiar sting of her words washed over me as I smoothed my Armani blazer, a purchase that had raised eyebrows at the family accountant's office. Little did they know it came from my own accounts, not the family trust they still thought I depended on. Sorry, Mother, I murmured, checking my phone discreetly. Another notification from my lawyers. The merger documents were ready for final review. My heart raced, but I kept my expression neutral, a skill learned from years of family dinners. At least put that phone away, my father, James Anderson III, commanded from the head of the table. His Rolex caught the light as he reached for his wine glass. Though I suppose playing on your phone is a step up from playing with dolls. The corner of my sister Margaret's mouth twitched upward. At 35, she ran our father's European division of Anderson Global and never missed an opportunity to highlight the contrast between our careers. Her Cartier bracelet clinked against her wine glass as she set it down with deliberate precision. Speaking of toys, Margaret's voice dripped with false concern, I drove past your little workshop yesterday. Still in that dreadful industrial district? You know, there's a lovely retail space opening up in the shopping center. Perfect for a small hobby store. I took a slow sip of water, remembering the meeting I'd had yesterday in that workshop. A 50,000 square foot research and development facility where we'd just completed final testing on our revolutionary AI-enhanced educational toy line. The same facility where, in exactly 43 minutes, I'd be signing the largest merger deal in toy industry history. The location suits our needs, I replied carefully. Another notification lit up my phone. The press release was ready. Our needs, Father scoffed, setting down his fork. Amanda, this obsession with toys has gone on long enough. You're an Anderson. It's time to join the real business world. Mother dabbed her lips with her monogrammed napkin. Your father's right, dear. Margaret was already closing million-dollar deals at your age. Meanwhile She waved her hand dismissively, crafting dolls in a warehouse. I checked my watch. A subtle Patek Philippe that would have told them everything if they'd bothered to notice. 20 minutes until the merger announcement. The toy industry is more complex than you think, I started, but Margaret's laugh cut through the air. Oh please. I just closed a $10 million distribution deal with Starlight Toys. That's real business, sister dear. Not whatever arts and crafts project you're running. Father nodded approvingly. Exactly. Look at your sister, handling major corporate accounts, representing the family name properly. I've held a position open for you in accounting. Entry level, of course, but it's time you learned real business. My phone vibrated again. The lawyers were in position. I took another slow sip of water, remembering my first meeting with Starlight's board 6 months ago. They'd underestimated me too, once. 10 million is impressive, I said carefully, watching Margaret preen. Starlight Toys must be quite interested in European distribution. They practically begged for the deal, Margaret boasted, reaching for the wine bottle. Their CEO has been calling me constantly this month, desperate to expand their market share before the quarter ends. Another notification lit up my phone. Merger documents approved by all parties. Press embargo lifts in 10 minutes. The CEO himself? I asked, allowing myself a small smile. How interesting. Well, some of us command that level of attention, Margaret smirked. Though I suppose you wouldn't know about high-level corporate negotiations, playing with your little dolls. Father's phone suddenly rang, interrupting Margaret's gloating. He glanced at the screen, frowning slightly. It's Bradley from the board. Excuse me, this must be important. He stood, answering with his executive voice. James Anderson speaking. I watched his face as he listened, savoring the rare moment when his carefully constructed mask of superiority began to crack. His eyes darted to me, then back to his plate, then to me again, growing wider with each movement. The CEO of Starlight is here? Now. His voice had lost its authoritative edge. For the merger signing? Mother and Margaret turned to stare at him. I stood slowly, straightening my blazer with deliberate care. That would be my meeting, I said calmly, gathering my portfolio. Starlight isn't begging for 10 million in contracts, Margaret. They're being acquired. The merger documents are ready. I checked my phone one final time. And I believe I'm running late for my signing. The silence that fell over the dining room was absolute. Mother's fork stopped halfway to her mouth, a piece of expensive beef dangling forgotten. Margaret's face drained of color so rapidly I could almost track its progress. And Father was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. I turned toward the door, then paused, unable to resist one final moment. Oh, and Mother? You're right. Playing with dolls doesn't pay bills. I smiled, feeling the weight of years of dismissal finally lift from my shoulders. Running a global toy manufacturing empire with 28 patents and a $3 billion valuation does. Now if you'll excuse me, I have some papers to sign. The sound of Margaret's wine glass shattering against the floor followed me out of the dining room, a perfect punctuation to the end of their illusions about their little girl playing with toys. The dining room erupted into chaos as multiple phones began ringing simultaneously. Dad's phone continued its insistent chime with Bradley Stewart, board chairman, flashing urgently, while Margaret's device lit up with calls from her European office. Mother's hands trembled so violently she couldn't even reach for her ringing phone. I pressed a button on my smartphone, and the massive 85-inch smart TV mounted on the dining room wall flickered to life. The familiar blue background of global financial news filled the screen. What are you doing? Margaret's voice cracked, her usual polished tone replaced by barely concealed panic. Creating a teaching moment, I replied, just as the news anchor's voice filled the room. Breaking news in the global toy industry, the anchor announced, her expression serious. In a shocking move that's sending ripples through Wall Street, industry giant Starlight Toys is being acquired in what analysts are calling the merger of the decade. We go live to their headquarters. Mother's shaking hand finally managed to grab her wine glass, only to miss her mouth entirely, leaving a red stain on her pristine white blouse. Amanda, what have you done? The screen split to show the Starlight Toys logo alongside my company's emblem, the Nova Creations star, its clean lines and modern design pulsing with subtle animation. The same logo they'd mocked as amateur when they'd driven past my facility last Christmas. That's your... Dad couldn't complete his sentence, his face growing paler by the second. My company's logo, yes, I confirmed, casually checking my emails. The same one you called childish at last year's family Christmas card photo shoot. Though I believe Margaret's exact words were, "Looks like a kindergartner's art project." The news anchor continued. The acquisition, valued at an astounding $3.2 billion, marks not only the largest toy industry merger this decade but also represents a fundamental shift in the industry's direction. Nova Creations, under the leadership of CEO Amanda Anderson, has revolutionized the traditional toy market with their proprietary smart toy technology. Margaret's Mont Blanc pen clattered to the floor. $3.2 billion. Would you like me to break down the numbers for you? I asked, pulling up a holographic display from my phone. I know how much you enjoy discussing figures at these family dinners. Though usually you're mocking my pocket money business. The TV showed footage from our last product launch, children interacting with toys that responded to their emotions, adapted to their learning styles, and connected safely with parental monitoring systems. The camera panned across our showroom, displaying hundreds of innovations that had been developed in my little workshop. Those patents you dismissed as wasteful research? I continued, watching their faces. They've redefined interactive play. While you thought I was playing pretend, so I was building an AI-driven educational technology platform that's now valued higher than Anderson Global's entire European division. The sharp click of heels on marble announced the arrival of my executive assistant, Sarah, her tablet displaying real-time updates of our stock price. Ms. Anderson, the board members are assembled in the conference room. The governor is on line 1. He's quite excited about discussing the new manufacturing facility. And the White House has requested a meeting regarding the educational initiative. Mother's second attempt at drinking wine failed as spectacularly as the first, this time sending the crystal glass tumbling across the imported tablecloth. The White House. 5,000 new jobs tend to attract attention, I said, gathering my documents. The president is particularly interested in our STEM education program for underprivileged communities. Though I might reconsider the facility's location, given Margaret's colorful comments about my choice of business districts. The financial news continued its relentless assault on their assumptions. Nova Creations' revolutionary approach has attracted unprecedented attention from major tech investors. Sources say the company's valuation could double after today's merger, with preliminary estimates suggesting. But you never told us, Dad finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. All these years. I told you every month, I corrected him. At every dinner, every family gathering, every holiday. Remember last Thanksgiving? When I tried to explain our new AI integration and you told me to stop babbling about dolls because Margaret was announcing her new company car. Amanda, please. Mother stood up, her perfect posture crumbling. We didn't understand. No, you didn't want to understand, I interrupted. You didn't want to know that your daughter had built a billion-dollar company. You were too busy planning my future in entry-level positions to notice I was creating thousands of jobs for others. Too occupied mocking my little workshop to see I was revolutionizing an industry. Sarah cleared her throat discreetly. Ms. Anderson, your helicopter is waiting. And the NYSE would like to confirm you'll be ringing the opening bell tomorrow morning. Helicopter. Margaret whispered, her face ashen. Opening bell? Of course, I smiled. The helipad at my little workshop comes in quite handy for global business meetings. And Dad, you might want to finally answer Bradley's call. I believe he's trying to tell you that your daughter just became your company's biggest competitor in 3 continents. The TV anchor's voice rose with excitement. This marks a historic moment in the toy industry as Nova Creations' Amanda Anderson becomes the youngest female CEO to complete a multi-billion-dollar merger. Sources say the deal includes. Margaret broke down. You'll destroy us. I stopped at the door. No, sister. I'll show you how to build something real. The question is, can you learn from the one you called a child? Dad's phone hit the floor as I left. They now knew the truth. The forgotten daughter was one of the most powerful leaders in business. A week after the merger, I sat in my office on the top floor of Nova Creations. The little workshop they mocked now ruled the skyline. Holograms around me showed live data from across the world. In the corner sat a perfect copy of our old family dining table. Every scratch, every detail. A reminder of their insults now turned into my victory. Ms. Anderson, Sarah called through the intercom. Your family is here. Your father tried to use his old codes. I smiled. Send them the normal way. They entered, worn down by the week. Mother's suit sagged on her frame. Dad gripped his portfolio, his Rolex gone. Margaret looked pale and frail. Sit, I said, pointing to the replica dining set. It should feel familiar. They sat in their old places. A hologram lit above the table showing Nova's global reach. Factories, research centers, sales across 6 continents. Your European division lost 40% this week, I told Margaret. Clients prefer us now, especially after seeing how you undercut our subsidiaries. She went pale. We can explain. No need, I cut her off. You mocked my toys. Yet those toys now power the world's largest tech toy facility. I showed them our new line of AI learning dolls. These help children learn. While you laughed, I built the future. They shrank in their seats. Do you want to know the price of your mockery? I asked. Your company is down 60%. Clients are leaving. Your banks meet tomorrow to pull your loans. And this is just the start. Dad's voice cracked. What do you want? To ruin us? No, I smiled. I'll give you a choice. Option 1. I keep buying your suppliers and clients. In 3 months, Anderson Global collapses. Option 2, we merge. My rules. My leadership. You start at the bottom learning what real work looks like. Sarah handed them the contracts. You have 24 hours, I said. Every major decision will happen at this table. No more mockery. No more silence. Now you'll listen. Mother whispered. We were wrong. Yes, I replied. And now your future depends on me. I held up one of the dolls. Sometimes the smallest toys change the world. And sometimes the daughter you dismissed becomes the woman who decides your fate. They left with shaking hands, contracts clutched tight. I turned back to the window. Their empire was crumbling. My empire was rising. And this time the family dinners would never be the same. The family intervention was Mom's idea, of course. She'd orchestrated it perfectly. Sunday dinner at their Palo Alto mansion, my favorite childhood meal prepared by their private chef, and both parents ready with their rehearsed speeches about my concerning life choices. I adjusted my simple black turtleneck as I entered the familiar dining room, already knowing what was coming. The table was set with Mom's best Wedgwood china. She always brought out the expensive stuff when she was planning to deliver bad news. Olivia, Dad began, setting down his wine glass. As a prominent venture capitalist, he'd perfected that disappointed but concerned tone. We need to talk about your situation. I checked my quantum-encrypted smartwatch discreetly. 45 minutes until the emergency board meeting. This should be interesting. Your father and I are worried, Mom added, her Stanford Medical School department head pin gleaming. You left a prestigious position at Goldman Sachs. To work on some secret project, Dad interrupted. In that industrial district office. What they called an industrial district office was actually a cutting-edge quantum computing facility. But they didn't need to know that. Yet. I'm doing fine, I said, sampling the coq au vin, their chef's signature dish. The project is going well. Well. Mom's voice rose slightly. You sold your penthouse. You're living in some startup commune. I suppressed a smile. The commune was the entire top floor of the city's most exclusive building. I'd bought it through a shell company to maintain privacy. JP Morgan called me last week, Dad pressed. They'd take you back in a heartbeat. Executive track 7 figures. I'm not interested in traditional banking anymore. Traditional banking? Mom's fork clattered against fine china. It's the foundation of modern finance. And you threw it away for what? Some mysterious tech experiment. My watch vibrated, a message from my COO. Chinese markets opening. Major announcement coming. Board emergency meeting in 30 minutes. Olivia, Dad leaned forward. You're 32. It's time to get serious about your future. I am serious, I replied calmly. More than you know. By hiding in some warehouse? Mom stood up, pacing. We didn't put you through Harvard Business School for this. Another message flashed across my watch. Breaking. Quantum breakthrough changes global encryption. Markets responding. You're throwing your life away, Mom cried, her voice cracking. All your potential. Before I could respond, the dining room's lights dimmed automatically. My quantum-linked holographic display activated, projecting a massive screen in the air. Emergency board meeting for quantum enterprises commencing in 15 minutes, the AI assistant announced. Attendees, global board members and major stakeholders. Dad's face went pale as faces began appearing in the holographic display. He recognized them all, CEOs of the world's largest tech companies, heads of major investment firms and several Nobel laureates. What is this? Mom whispered. My board meeting, I said simply, standing up. I'm afraid I'll have to cut dinner short. Your board meeting? Dad's voice cracked as he recognized his former mentor, now the head of the largest tech fund in Asia, appearing on the display. Ms. Mitchell, my AI assistant announced. The quantum encryption announcement is trending globally. Markets in Asia are reacting strongly to the breakthrough. Mom grabbed the nearest tablet, her hands shaking as she pulled up financial news. The headlines were everywhere. Quantum Enterprises revolutionizes global security. Mysterious tech founder disrupts encryption industry. Markets surge on quantum breakthrough. This is yours. Dad whispered, watching as more Fortune 500 CEOs joined the call. The warehouse. I smiled slightly. Houses the world's most advanced quantum computing facility. That secret project you mocked? Just revolutionized global cybersecurity. Mom sank into her chair as the headlines kept scrolling. The daughter they'd been trying to save from poor life choices was about to become one of the most powerful figures in tech. Board meeting starting in 5 minutes, the AI announced. Ms. Mitchell, your secure quantum link is ready. I straightened my turtleneck, the same design worn by every major tech founder before me. Thank you for dinner. We'll have to continue this discussion another time. Wait. Dad called out, his venture capitalist instincts finally kicking in. Let me invest. I can open up my fund. Your fund. I paused at the door. Dad, my company's value just exceeded your entire portfolio. By several zeros. The holographic display filled with more faces, government officials, tech leaders, global investors. All waiting for me. Ms. Mitchell, a familiar voice called out. The president's science advisor is requesting to join the call. Mom's medical school pin suddenly looked very small compared to the Nobel Prize winners waiting to speak with her daughter. Don't wait up, I said, heading for the door where my quantum-enabled car waited. Some of us have a global economy to transform. Behind me, I could hear them scrambling to comprehend how their daughter, the one they'd been so worried about, was about to become one of the most influential people in technology. My watch buzzed one final time. Asian markets up 20% on quantum announcement. Wall Street opening early for emergency trading. Sometimes the best life choices are the ones your family doesn't understand. Yet, the quantum-enabled car glided silently away from my parents' mansion, its holographic displays already activating for the board meeting. Behind me, through the tinted windows, I could see Mom and Dad frantically making calls, no doubt to their network of Silicon Valley connections. Your parents are attempting to access Quantum Enterprises' investor relations portal, my AI assistant noted. Should I authorize? Not yet, I smiled. Let them sweat a little longer. The holographic display filled the car's interior, showing real-time market reactions across Asia. Quantum Enterprises' announcement was causing global shockwaves. Ms. Mitchell, my CFO's avatar appeared. Singapore Exchange has halted trading due to unprecedented volume. Your net worth has increased by $42 billion in the last hour. My phone buzzed continuously, dozens of messages from my parents' social circle. The same people who'd dismissed my mysterious project at cocktail parties were now desperately seeking connections. Breaking news scrolled across the display. Quantum Enterprises founder revealed as Olivia Mitchell, world's youngest tech founder, disrupts global security. My driver took a detour past my father's venture capital firm. Through the windows I could see chaos erupting as traders realized they'd missed the biggest tech breakthrough of the decade. Your father's assistant is on line 3, the AI reported. He's offering an emergency meeting with their investment committee. Tell him I'm busy revolutionizing global encryption, I replied. Maybe he can try Goldman Sachs instead. I hear they're hiring. The car approached my real office, not the warehouse my parents knew about, but the gleaming quantum computing center disguised as an ordinary tech campus. As we pulled up, my watch buzzed with an urgent message from Mom. Darling, please call immediately. The hospital board is asking about quantum encryption for patient data. Did you really turn down their partnership offer last month? I had. The same hospital board where she served as chief of medicine had dismissed my proposal as unrealistic. Now they were scrambling. The board meeting was about to begin when my father's face appeared on a private channel. Olivia. He looked shaken. I just spoke with Michael Chin at Quantum Fund. My lead investor? I interrupted. The one you told me was wasting money on science projects last year. He flinched. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I activated my quantum terminal, watching as the world's most powerful executives appeared in my holographic space. You didn't even believe in traditional encryption, Dad. Remember? Stick to traditional banking, was your advice. Another message from Mom. The Stanford Dean is asking about your quantum computing center donation. Please call. Ms. Mitchell, my PR director's avatar appeared. Forbes wants to confirm your new net worth for their real-time billionaire tracker. You've just passed several tech founders. Dad's face paled as the number appeared. $127.4 billion and climbing. That's impossible, he whispered. Actually, I pulled up our patent portfolio. Our quantum encryption breakthrough just made it very possible. Every device, every network, every financial system will need our technology. The holographic space filled with more faces, government officials, tech giants, global leaders. All waiting for the daughter my parents thought was throwing her life away. The president's science advisor is ready, my AI announced. One moment, I told the waiting dignitaries. Turning back to Dad's channel, I smiled. You should check Mom's hospital's data security. Their current encryption just became obsolete. Like your investment advice. Before he could respond, my quantum terminal lit up with urgent alerts. Global markets surge on quantum breakthrough. Mitchell Enterprises valued at $1.2 trillion. World's youngest trillionaire emerges from stealth mode. My phone buzzed again. Mom had texted the entire family. Emergency family meeting now. Olivia's project is significant. All hands on deck. Too late. The daughter they tried to intervention was now leading a global technological revolution. Your sister is trying to reach you, the AI noted. She's offering to leave her McKinsey partnership to join Quantum Enterprises. Tell her to submit her application through HR. I replied. Like everyone else. The quantum displays showed my parents' house, lights blazing as cars pulled up. Their entire social circle arriving for an emergency strategy session. How to connect with the daughter they'd underestimated. Ms. Mitchell, my CSO appeared. The NSA director is requesting priority access to the quantum encryption specs. I straightened in my chair as the full board assembled in the holographic space. Nobel laureates, tech pioneers, global leaders, all reporting to the daughter who'd lost her way. Time to transform global security, I announced to the waiting leaders. Dad, you might want to update your portfolio. Traditional encryption just became history. His channel closed as the full implications hit him. His daughter hadn't just succeeded, she'd rendered entire industries obsolete overnight. My watch showed one final message from Mom. Darling, about that intervention, can we discuss over dinner? Your terms. Response. My AI asked. Tell her I'm busy, I smiled. Some of us have a quantum revolution to lead. The holographic space hummed with power as the emergency board meeting began. Behind me, through quantum-encrypted windows, I could see my parents' social world imploding as realizations spread. The daughter they'd tried to save had just saved global security instead. Now, I addressed the waiting world leaders. Let's discuss the future of encryption. Sometimes the best intervention is the one you perform yourself. The next morning, global markets were still reeling from Quantum Enterprises' revelation. I sat in my real office, a quantum-powered command center atop our warehouse, watching the chaos unfold across multiple holographic screens. Your parents have been in their private boardroom all night, my AI reported. Current attendees include 3 bank CEOs, 5 venture capitalists, and your mother's entire hospital board. I smiled, adjusting my quantum neural interface. Desperately seeking ways to connect with their suddenly influential daughter? Precisely. Your father has made 17 attempts to access our investor portal. Your mother has called Stanford's development office 4 times regarding the Quantum Computing Center naming rights. The main display showed breaking news. Quantum Enterprises freezes new investments. Mitchell family scrambles to connect with tech's newest power player. Global encryption standards rewritten overnight. My watch buzzed, another message from Mom. Darling, please. The hospital board is meeting in an hour. We need to discuss quantum security options. Ms. Mitchell, my quantum AI interrupted. The G7 Cybersecurity Summit is beginning. They're waiting for your keynote. I activated the holographic stage, my image preparing to broadcast to world leaders. The same daughter they tried to intervention was now lecturing governments on the future of global security. One moment, I told the waiting dignitaries. Family matter to address first. I opened a direct channel to my parents' boardroom. Their faces appeared, surrounded by desperate power players from their social circle. Olivia. Mom stood up quickly. We've been trying to reach you. I know, I replied calmly. 17 portal attempts for Stanford calls and... I checked the quantum feed, 32 urgent messages from your hospital board. Dad adjusted his tie nervously. Princess, if we'd known about the quantum breakthrough. You'd have what? I interrupted. Believed in me? Supported my poor life choices? Or just tried to invest earlier? The room fell silent. Behind them, I could see their influential friends practically squirming with the need to make connections. About the hospital's data security, Mom began. Is obsolete, I finished. Like every other traditional encryption system worldwide. Quantum Enterprises is selecting partner institutions carefully. We'd be happy to offer preferred investor status, one of the bank CEOs chimed in. I laughed softly. Our market cap exceeded your bank's value while you were sleeping. But you can submit an application through our public portal. Like everyone else. My quantum display showed their net worths dropping in real time as markets adjusted to the new reality. The daughter they dismissed now controlled their financial future. The G7 is waiting, my AI reminded gently. Your sister called. Mom tried one last time. She's willing to leave McKinsey. To join the company she called a delusional science project, last Christmas? I raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing. The quantum screens showed global encryption systems transforming in real time. Every network, every device, Every security protocol being rewritten by my technology. One last thing, I addressed the room. That family intervention you planned? Consider this mine. With a gesture, I activated our quantum security protocols. Their phones buzzed simultaneously. What's happening? Dad asked, staring at his device. Your digital access is now quantum encrypted, I told them. A courtesy for family. The rest of your networks need certification. 6 months wait. Mom's hospital board gasped. 6 months unprotected was a disaster. But, we're family, Mom whispered. Exactly, I said. Family who ignored me. Consider this your wake-up call. The screen showed my net worth. $189.7 billion and rising. The G7 leaders are ready, my AI said. Good luck with your board meeting, Mom, I replied. I have world leaders to advise. Dinner soon, at my quantum center. Their faces disappeared. News tickers flashed. Quantum Enterprises sets global standards. Mitchell revolutionizes digital age. Youngest trillionaire transforms security. My watch buzzed. A message from Dad. Princess, we were wrong. Please. Response. My AI asked. Tell him the intervention is over, I smiled. I have a world to transform. The holographic stage lit up. My keynote to billions began. Good morning, world leaders. Let's talk about the quantum future. Revenge wasn't needed. I didn't just prove them wrong. I became impossible to ignore. The intervention failed. And my quantum revolution had only begun.